salaries that were increased to 30,000 basic minimum wage. I mean, minimum wage in 2019. Some states haven't paid since then. This is 4 years down the line, and everybody continues to tell you that they don't have money. Inflation is going on. I don't know where you expect people who earn 30,000 to pay school fees, to pay rents, and so on. But good news to the workers. I guess this should cheer them up for Workers' Day. But given what the medical practitioners are saying, I'm not sure that they were really cheered up by Indige's news. And that is it for me. So the president-elect and his incoming administration coming in the next 27 days have a lot of discussions around improving the welfare of the public sector, reducing the cost of public sector. I'm not saying that you should fire more workers, but you should reduce the cost from other areas so that you can see this impact coming to the salaries of government workers, not just at the federal level, even at the state level. So states would, some Lagos State has already, before now they had already announced a 20% increase across board for all workers, and these are things that we need to look at as we go on. Okay? So this increment, some of the state labor unions will start to push for them now. Can the states really pay? These are huge questions that need to be answered. So booby traps, I just see across board.
All right, let's move on to the next headline.
Yes, on to the next headline. Still staying with labor-related matters. Now, the Nigeria Labour Congress (NLC) has called for a review of the civil servants' retirement age and years of service in the entire public service to 65. This call was made by NLC President Joe Ajero during the 2023 Workers' Day celebration in Abuja yesterday.
I think this is a good idea. You don't waste experience, especially in a country whereby those who have served in public, at the end of the day, a lot of them are struggling to collect their pensions. Give them the extra 5 years, they would still be able to benefit the system, especially when you consider the fact that more and more younger Nigerians are jackbuying. Who are the ones that are going to develop the ones for those spaces that have been created? It's those with the experience. The other option you have is okay, as they're retiring, you're creating new openings in terms of them working with government organizations to develop the incoming younger people who are coming into governance and who are coming into public sector area. Although you saw in France that an increase in the retirement age brought about, riots and protests, and went as far as the Supreme Court. But the truth of it is, when this maximum age and maximum time were set, it was a long time ago. At one, the number of people, the age at which people were coming into the system, and there were enough spaces for people to come in. Now, but when you consider the fact that more and more Nigerians are leaving because of trying to get a better economic value for themselves, you find out that you have so many gaps within the system, and you don't have even the experienced people to take the next generation through. If you go into the next story, maybe I just take that along. In Abia State, they've already approved the 65 and 40 years. And when you look across the world, sometimes experience doesn't matter. They will develop the new ones, put them into, even if they are not fully engaged in terms of whether they're teaching or what's called principals, head of schools, head of agencies, to share those experiences and develop the next generation of public servants, and or create institutes where those things can, curriculums can be put together, and they form a nucleus of those who provide that service, and so on. And then when you have gaps in terms of experience, in terms of running, whether it's government agencies or government parastatals or ministries, then you would have these people always be available, at least for the next 5 years, to work with the next generation, to work with the other people, to teach them the basics of how things should be done. So I do, in my own opinion, I don't think it's a great idea. A number of Nigerians they're working to 70, 80 these days. Those who own their own businesses. So what's the president is 80, so why
But
the incoming president is 70? So maybe they should, maybe we shouldn't have voted them in, or they should retire. So these are things we need to consider. And when you consider the lack of debt in those who are within the public sector space today, everybody wants to move to private sector. You just find out that at the end of the day, this is a huge opportunity to get these people remain in the system, start to develop new entrants into the public service, and teach them, coach them, mentor those ones, and guide them. And
But could there be drawbacks to this? Because I mean, if the retirement age is increased as it has been, at least from these stories, doesn't it mean that people now have to work longer before they actually get the benefits that they ideally should get at retirement?
true, but you do have the option of retiring before the retirement period. So if you think you're tired, but the fact for me remains this: more and more people are leaving the system, and the rate at which you're replacing them is slower than at the rate at which they are leaving. More and more people are getting to 60. We are getting huge gaps in critical areas of public sector management, of public sector supervision, and you can we are beginning to feel some of the impact in across board. When you think about this, that my opinion, like I continue to say, is you still need these people, however you want to use them over the next 5 years, whether they're running the parastatals or they're running institutes where you develop, and harness the potentials of the next generation of public servants becomes very critical. Otherwise, they go, they retire, they go back and do one thing or the other. Some of them pass on as quickly as they retire, and you know, it just, for me, I think it's something that, in my own opinion, that makes sense.
But the thing is, looking at, if we say, okay, that 65 years being or should be retirement age, I mean, is there going to be much of a difference between what the individual would be able to pass across in terms of knowledge at 60 and, 60, how much of a difference would there be, from, I mean, for someone who has been there for that long, for quite a number of years, I mean, how much more experience would be added on in terms of, being there up until 65?
It's not the experience for the person; it's the experience for the system. Because you have, let's look at it this way: um, more and more young people are coming into the public service. More and more young people don't understand how the public service works. Now, do you expect, and like I said, how do you create additional things for them to be able to develop the system itself? Do you, so you go to the training school, you join the parastatal or you join the ministry, and then you come out and then you have to, get on the job or learning. If there is scarcity of human capital within the sector, who is going to really train you on the job? And these are things that you need to look at. We're not, like I said, when these things were said in the 70s and the 80s, my father retired at 50, because then they looked at it that when you were 50 and you had done 15, 20 years.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it was a big deal. You had worked for so long. So
You
a
had
lot
reached
of,
the zenith at
yeah,
that
you had
point.
reached the zenith. You had become a palm sec or a deputy palm sec or something. And at the end of the day, it also takes you a longer time to get to those spaces because competition is more.
Mm.
However, there is a lot that they can bring to the system. And let's never forget that.
All right, let's look at some messages coming through. Gab says, what money are we using to increase salaries? We've already used revenue to pay debt and there's inflation. I'm not understanding. Are there undisclosed sources of revenue?
New taxes are coming in.
Abbas says, how productive will a 65-year-old be in civil service? We keep saying we want younger people, and we are advocating for more years in service. People should go and rest when they complete their 35 years of service, or if they are 60 years old, so they can give others the chance to rise up the ladder. All right. Fabian says the government should stop focusing on salaries and aim at creating an enabling environment that will boost the economy. A lot of states are yet to implement the last minimum wage, and the private sector is equally groaning. It's 7:44, and this is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Stay with us, it continues.
You see, when people say go and retire at 60,
Sorry?
when you say go and retire at 60, yeah, if you think at that point in time,
So, do you still get the benefits if you retire early?
oh yeah, you
Oh,
get your
everything.
benefit, yeah,
Oh,
you get
okay.
your benefits.
Oh, okay. Because I was not too sure about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you reach the peak of your career, are you with me? So you might as well tell the Tony Elemilu and the everybody to go and retire. Because the fact of the matter is you must create new things for them to be able to do. It's a system, and it must be a system that
But
is
how likely
intentionally
are
developed.
older people to adapt to like a newer system at that age?
You see, the thing about this is processes don't change. Technology might enable processes to become faster, but when you don't understand the basics, I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and everybody just says, he says, oh, I help businesses implement their IT
We're
strategy.
going on.
I'm coming back on.
Here we are.
Huh? Okay. When we're done.
I bring us in.
This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1, looking at the big stories making the rounds in the newspapers. And we have Uade with us in the studio, our analyst for the day. And let's move on to our next story here. So this is from the Vanguard newspaper. Now, the Egyptian government has finally opened its border to Nigerian students fleeing the crisis in Sudan to be evacuated home. Now, recall that students have been stranded on the Egyptian-Sudanese border following the refusal of the government of Egypt to grant them access to the airports in its territory where they are to be airlifted. This has to be good news.
Yeah, great news for those who are fleeing the conflict in Sudan. Um, I remember when this news broke, one of the things that everybody was asking is why you spend $1.2 million. It was the money that that caught everybody's attention. And one of the things I said is the logistics and the security to move people from war-torn areas can be a bit challenging. However, the other thing about it is, and the government has they've not done well in some parts. They've done well in some parts. But the question for me here will be, what was the High Commission doing, or the embassy in Egypt? Where these are things that when you had made that decision and finally come to a decision after a bit of time being wasted, you should have worked on all these protocols and all the things that were required. And I understand why the Egyptians will shut their border, because you don't know who is also coming in or who claims to be coming in with the so-called Nigerian students. And in a volatile area like the middle, like that the horn of the horn side of Africa, you need to be security conscious, and these are things that the Egyptians put in place. The other thing for me is he had to take the president to make a call to the president of Egypt
Hmm.
for them to, and then these conditions that were reeled out for you to be able to bring in the
Quite a
Nigerian,
number of
quite a number
conditions.
of conditions. So they must show their passports, the buses must be available to. These are things that you should have anticipated and put in place. And so we already have these things, we prepared for them, open the borders, let them get into the buses, boom, and all. Not just move people to a place and then you're now waiting and expecting that they'll just open the gates. There are security implications there. There was in Sudan, war in South Sudan that has just gradually come to an end. There's a war that is trying to come to an end in Ethiopia, and these are all border towns to Egypt. So, who is coming in? Is Are you on the guise of being a Nigerian coming in as, in quote, a terrorist in that region? That could cause chaos. So the issue for me is a lack of preparedness every time. The things that we know we meant to do, that have the process is clear, but we never do it as we're meant to do it on time. We didn't start on time. We didn't we we put the logistics together. There were challenges. There would always be challenges in this kind of time, but the challenges were things that became very glaring. This also became glaring because nobody is just going to let you walk. It happened in the Ukraine war, but we know what the Nigerian embassy in Poland, Bulgaria did, all in the process for the Nigerians in Ukraine, to move out of Ukraine and come to those places. The ambassador and members of the Nigerian embassy were there every day, every minute, working tirelessly overnight, putting information out to the public, all across on news, on other forms of media, and this is what we have not seen here. We've just, gone the typical way. We'll evacuate them or we'll bring in a plane. Yeah, but at a point in time they're asking about, oh, do they have visas to even be in Sudan? And like Abike Dabiri said at some point in time, you really don't know who is legally in Sudan or not. And remember that these are all transit routes for some of these smuggling of human smuggling to get into Europe and all. So are we really sure of the number of Nigerians in Sudan? Because if you're there and the embassy is not aware,
right,
then these are all challenges. Yes, we're slow in reacting. There were challenges across board, but thank God, at least we are sure that the first batch will probably come in today or tomorrow.
All right, good stuff. All right, let's take a couple of messages here from WhatsApp. This is from Gary Neeson. He says, "Good morning to you. Please, why is it all about increasing payments and not price stability and improving the economic value as well as monetary value? Increased pay will result in nothing but devalued currency." This is another one from Victor, and he says, "A lower retirement age creates more space and vacancies for the junior staff. If they don't leave, how will their roles be filled and how will junior staff be promoted?" This is from D, and he says, "Reviewing the retirement age only means milking the workers more to the benefit of those gaining from the pension fund. NLC should push for a better retirement payment plan or system. The current retirees are not smiling."
all right, let's take one more.
I know that.
This is okay. There's no name here, and this says, with the rate of unemployment in the country, job roles that could be vacant will remain unavailable if fresh, innovative minds cannot be brought in.
All right, let's move on to Daily Trust. Now, barely a week after announcing plans to suspend its move on fuel subsidy, the Nigerian government has introduced new taxes on imported goods, alcoholic beverages, tobacco, single-use plastics, telecom service, and motor vehicles with large engines.
Typical. And I say typical because this is what we do every time. Since 2020, after COVID, we've either introduced new taxes or increased taxes. And that's not the way to go. When this came out, I think it was over the weekend. It came out on Friday. Friday was 28th, yeah. Taiwo Yedele, who had put it up, had written a comment, and for me, it was just clear. You're continually increasing taxes or bringing in new taxes. You're not putting in people into the tax net, and it's not going to work. What is going to happen is more and more people are going to be looking for how to avoid these taxes. If it's possible, what you should be doing is create a system. We have so many taxes in the states, in the local government, at the federal government level, that you're just collecting monies and we don't even see where these monies are going to. The informal sector, how much monies are you collecting? Forget, they do collect a lot of money from them. Market dues, the local governments are sitting on their heads, the state governments are sitting on their head. You're increasing taxes on telecoms, meaning that the subscriber is going to pay more money. So your 40% or your 200% increment in salary, where does it go to? It comes back to you. So are you robbing Peter to pay Paul, or are you giving Peter the money so that he can pay more monies to Paul? And these are the things I see with taxes. We're so quick at, let's create new taxes, let's increase the taxes. Who knows whether when the next incoming administration comes in, VAT is going to go up because they're already pushing for VAT to go to 10%. But at the end of the day, how are you managing the system? How are you getting more and more people to believe and trust in the system of taxation so that you can see the value that is being added? You can actually collect more taxes and get more monies or more revenues when you expand the tax net when you create a system that people are willingly pay their taxes and not try and avoid or evade tax. And this is what I see with these new taxes that are coming up. Taxes on trucks, 2000 cc, 4000 cc, in an economy where inflation is already skyrocketing. So the federal government, I think, should think about it. I don't know what the incoming administration will do, but I don't think they will change it much because the Nigeria doesn't need the money.
Yeah, definitely Nigeria doesn't need the money. I'm actually glad you talked about so many taxes. We've had cases of multiple taxation and so on and so forth. But should new taxes be the go-to? Should new taxes be the default? Bearing in mind that Nigerians are going through the most right now. I
No,
mean,
no,
people are being
no,
taxed through their noses.
no. New taxes should not be the goal. The goal should be how do we improve the system of collections? How do we improve the people who are within the bracket of paying taxes, whether it's minimum tax or and what kind of benefits are they seeing from it? And these are the realities. Some people in Nigeria will avoid tax because they don't see the benefits. How much am I paying? And so I pay the taxes. There's no light, there's no water, there are no roads. I have to fix my roads. And you're asking yourself the question, does it really make sense for me to pay taxes? It's against the law not to pay your taxes. But these are things that people will consider in a country where you don't even have the right system of what's it called, enforcement. How many people have been tried for evading tax or for avoiding tax? None. And every month, whether it's LIRS or FIRS continues to put on ads on different radio stations. Oh, submit. Why do I need to file? Why should I file when I'm not seeing the benefit of how much that is coming to you? And these are the realities. Make the system more transparent for the collection so that people can believe that when they pay these taxes, they see the benefits that come in. Tax is a huge revenue space for Nigeria, and if you do it correctly, you probably collect more taxes than oil revenues.
Let's look at some messages. Ibukun says, I agree with Wade. We have to look at the age that Nigerians are graduating from university. Besides, if there's no age barrier for the executive, why should there be for the civil service? Deji says 65 years is not ideal for the system. Some officials are even tired before they are retired until people start collapsing. As people retire, there should be new intakes as well. And Cisco says retirement age of 60 is okay to me. Instead, the federal government should focus on how to retire people with good allowance and pensions. Our pension scheme in Nigeria is not exactly encouraging. And Dan says if our embassies in Sudan and Egypt cannot handle the simple evacuation of Nigerian students, what is the essence of having them? They are not proactive in handling this issue. I don't think it's a very simple process.
It's not as
Well,
straightforward.
no. When he says simple, for me, what he means is what is the coordination and the collaboration? Like I said, we did it in Ukraine and we saw it. All the Ukraine, I mean, Poland, Bulgaria, you name it. The ambassadors, we could, every day, they were passing out the information. So, what does it take to coordinate this?
Is it possible that we're dealing, or with the Ukraine situation, Nigeria was dealing with European nations, which probably have a different standard of organization compared to what will be found here in African countries involved, like Nigeria, Sudan, and Egypt?
Some other African countries have evacuated their, what's it called?
Their
Citizens?
Yeah. We didn't hear that, they locked them at one border. So let's move on. If we made the error, let's learn from our mistakes. Initially, the Ukraine started off badly, but by the time the Nigerian embassies across 3-4 countries got together, worked together, it became seamless.
All right, let's move on to the Guardian. Ayo?
All right, onto the Guardian really quickly here. Yes, so the federal government commissions, the Minister of Water Resources Engineer Suleiman Adamo commissioned 2 excavators at Baraje in Jigawa State. Now, he stated that the 2 machines were specifically designed for operation in wetlands, riverbeds, and floods where ordinary excavators cannot operate.
I'll be very brief on this. I saw it this morning and I was appalled. Should this hit the pages of the newspaper? It's your work you're doing. When you go further down, it says, oh, a lot of the beds have been, from grains, so the water pool is not flowing well. It's not, it's amazing that it even goes into the newspapers in Nigeria. That is a simple job for the ministry to have done, excavated the beds and make sure that the water flow is good. And we don't even need to hear about it. What we need to hear is that, oh, it has increased production of agri produce in Jigawa State, and it has increased the flow of water to other places that require it. Not telling me that you commissioned 2 excavators that are meant to be for water beds. And Zibby didn't let me start with this story. Let me announce to you. But that's the reality for me. I don't think it should be in the pages of the newspaper.
All right, quickly on to WhatsApp. This is from Yenka Bolu, and he says, before now, how was the movement within Africa among African countries? So with or without the conflict in Sudan, this was always going to be an issue. Nigeria is not the only country with issues with Egypt or Ethiopia. So please, let's not make this a Nigerian thing. He also says, same country where folks are eager to pay
religious
dues than pay tax, yet we want development.
Okay, and finally, one last message. Sunday says, since many people are not paying direct taxes, the only available option is to increase and expand the indirect taxes, like taxes on telephone, as the usage is common to everyone. We have a lot of messages. We can't take them all. Thanks for listening. Thanks for your messages. And of course, thanks to Uade, our analyst this morning, for joining us on Freshly Pressed.
Thank you for having me as always.
Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.